Okay, good evening, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order. If you could please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance. Okay, welcome to the Town of Riverhead Planning Board meeting. Today is Thursday, August 5th, 2021. We do still have the meeting available via Zoom, so for the couple of people who called in, if you could please mute your mics until you want to speak or until we recognize you, we would appreciate it. We have several public hearings on the agenda tonight. The first one listed is HK Ventures for a draft environmental impact statement. I assume, sir, you're with Representative HK.
I am.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, honorable members of the Town Planning Board, Keith Brown of Brown, Altman, and DeLeo, located at 538 Broad Hollow Road, Suite 301 West, Melville, New York, 11747. I'm here tonight with respect to HK Ventures Draft Environmental Impact Statement in connection with the development of the property located at 4285 Middle Country Road in Calverton. With me tonight is our project team of experts, some of whom will be making a brief presentation to the board regarding the project. To my immediate right, we have Ms. Jacqueline Peranto of Key Civil Engineering. She's the project civil engineer. To her right is Kim Gennaro, the project planner and environmental consultant. To her right is Mr. Andrew Bellari of Stonefield Engineering, the project traffic engineer. And we also have in the second row Mr. Alex Belamonte. He's of BLD Architecture, the project architect. And next to him is Mr. Brian Grogan, PE with PW Grosser Consulting, who's our environmental consultant. If we could just, if it's possible, pull up the site plan with the aerial. By way of background, the property is located at 4285 Middle Country Road in Calverton, and is located on the south side of Middle Country Road, approximately 525 feet east of the intersection of Fresh Pond Avenue. The property is a 30-acre lot and is zoned Industrial C. The site is vacant and undeveloped and was formerly agricultural land. We note that the property is located within the Federal Opportunity Zone near Enterprise Park at Calverton, more commonly known as EPCAL. To provide some context, the area surrounding the site is generally characterized by large commercial lots and retail uses along the south side of Middle Country Road. To the west of the property is the Tractor Supply Company, retail store, the Sky Materials site, as well as the former sand mining operation. Further west along Middle Country Road is a steakhouse restaurant, a poultry farm, a bagel store, single-family residences, and the Stony Brook University Incubator at Calverton. It's like the third one in. That'll work. That's fine. Yep. Thank you. To the north are agricultural and commercial land uses. To the east is an active sod farm, residential uses, and industrial uses. Further east is a gasoline fueling station, farm equipment supplies, Moto One Long Island Motorsports Park, and Splish Splash Water Park. And to the east is the town-owned Enterprise Park. To the south is the town-owned Enterprise Park, EPCAL property, and a portion of the EPCAL recreational bike path. Just as far as procedure, on February 3rd of last year, the preliminary site plan application was filed with the town. Additional documentation, including revised site plans, a stormwater pollution prevention plan, and a traffic mitigation plan was submitted to the town on July 9th of last year. On July 16th of last year, the Planning Board assumed lead agency and issued a positive declaration pursuant to SECRA. On September 21st of last year, the applicant submitted a draft scope prepared by PW Grosser Consulting, dated September 11th, 2020. Thereafter, a public scoping meeting via Zoom was held by the Planning Board on November 5th of 2020. On November 19th, the Planning Board adopted the final scope for the site plan application. On or before May 11th of 2021, the applicant submitted a draft environmental impact statement. Thereafter, on June 17th of 2021, the Planning Board deemed the DEIS as adequate for public review and comment and scheduled a public hearing for today, August 5th, 2021, to consider the DEIS. As will be explained by our team in more detail, this project is unique in that it serves a real need for warehouse, distribution, and manufacturing space on the North Fork of eastern Long Island, and the location of this property is an ideal fit. HK Ventures proposes to redevelop the property into a campus-style warehouse, distribution, and manufacturing facility to cater to this need. 75% of the project will consist of light industrial warehouse distribution uses, and the remaining 25% of the project will consist of indoor manufacturing uses. The project will be developed in two phases. Phase 1 will develop the northern portion of the site with 4 buildings totaling 226,000 square feet to be completed in 2022. And Phase 2 will develop the remaining 186,000 square feet of buildings along the southern portion of the property in 2024. The Industrial C zoning district permits the applicant's intended use of the property with warehouse and indoor manufacturing uses. The project has been designed to comply with the town code to the greatest extent practical. The only variance that will be needed will be with that required by the Town Zoning Board of Appeals is for a maximum percentage of permitted impervious surface. But for that, the project would be completely as of right. Some additional zoning considerations for the board is that the property has been designated within the Federal Opportunity Zone, which has the intent and purpose of encouraging private investment in low-income and rural communities, by definition. The project will create jobs and attract new tenants and residents to the Calverton area. With respect to job growth, it's anticipated that the project will generate 50 to 60 construction jobs and 459 permanent jobs. The completed project is also expected to increase tax revenue from the property to approximately $1.13 million to approximately $1.310 million. The project is also consistent with and furthers the goals of the town's comprehensive plan, as the comprehensive plan envisions the property being improved with a light industrial use such as warehouse and indoor manufacturing. The project is also consistent with the economic development goals contained within the comprehensive plan, as it will bring construction jobs, approximately 459 permanent jobs, and increase the property's tax revenue, as I said, to approximately $1.1 to $1.3 million per year. As will be explained in more detail by the project experts, this project is not expected to result in any significant adverse land use or zoning impacts. In short, the following mitigation efforts have been incorporated into the overall plan. 1, an on-site cafeteria will be included as part of the industrial campus for employees only, which will limit potential afternoon trips onto Middle Country Road. 2nd, planting buffers on both side yards will be between 40 and 44 feet, and a planting buffer at the rear yard will be 31.9 feet, all of which far exceed the 10-foot buffer requirement under the town code. 3rd, the side and rear yard landscaping buffer will screen the development of the property from adjacent land uses as well as from the Epcal walking trail. 4, further, approximately 23.19% of the site will be contiguous landscaping exceeding the town code's requirement of 20%. 5th, the front yard landscaping will act as a screen of the property along Middle Country Road. And 6th, the design of the project provides far greater setbacks than what is otherwise permitted under the town code. And finally, we submit that the landscape buffers, screening, and enhanced setbacks will mitigate any potential impact from the project to the surrounding area and Middle Country Road. So with that, we'd like to call our first witness, Ms. Jacqueline Paranto. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Jacqueline Paranto, site engineer for the project. This project is considered a state-of-the-art industrial development designed in a campus-style layout. We're incorporating many green components in our project design. For the site, we are featuring electric car charging stations, rooftop solar, LED dark sky compliant light fixtures, stormwater recharge basins and dry wells, which will infiltrate back into the groundwater, and pervious pavement areas. For the building, there's high-efficiency mechanical equipment, natural daylighting, high-speed loading dock doors and seals, white roof membrane, and increased insulation values for the building envelope to retain heated and cooled air. The site is designed with a signalized full access drive located in the center of the property. Is it possible to zoom into the top of that plan a little bit? Over at the north end? It's such a large property. It's close to 3,000 linear feet in length, so the scale of the project's you can't see the extent of that front buffer when it's good. Thank you. Yeah. So the site is designed with a signalized full access drive located in the center of the property. The access drive provides a queue for trucks that enter before reaching the security access gate and card reader. Site circulation is designed such that truck traffic will utilize the outer driveways and passenger vehicles will utilize the center driveway where the parking is located and the entrance into the tenant spaces. The project consists of constructing 8 buildings, each of approximately 50,000 square feet with a mix of industrial tenants, 75% warehouse and 25% manufacturing. The buildings are also broken up into various sized tenant spaces. On the east side of the property, we have larger tenant spaces with loading docks that can accept tractor trailers and 4-foot loading bay. And on the west side, we have smaller tenant spaces with overhead doors for more of a box truck type delivery. The buildings are set back a minimum of 125 feet from the roadway, and there are large landscape areas with berms up to 3 feet in height that will be planted along the roadway to buffer the view of the development. The buildings along the east side have the recessed docks, as I had indicated. And the west are the overhead doors. We have provided an on-site stormwater system, which is designed to handle a 100-year rain event, 9 inches of rainfall. It will consist of about 82 dry wells and a large recharge basin located at the rear of the site. The site naturally slopes from the front to the back, and the building's floor elevations are stepped down, assisting in balancing the earthwork calculations. Native on-site soils consist of a mix of sand and gravel with very high infiltration rates, making use of the recharge basin and dry wells an ideal situation for drainage. Sanitary and kitchen waste from the commissary will be sent to the on-site sewage treatment plant. A grease trap will be provided for the kitchen waste line in accordance with the health department standards. The sewage treatment plant is located in the center of the development. It's over on the east side between the center buildings, just at the bottom of the page there. And it's designed for 20,000 gallons per day. The total flow proposed for this development is 16,506 gallons per day. Discussions are still ongoing with Riverhead Water District. However, the project does intend to have potable water connected to the public water supply. We're proposing an 8-inch on-site water main, which will loop the site with 2 points of connection in Middle Country Road, and on-site backflow preventer devices in earth berms at the front of the property. Each building will be served with a domestic and fire service, and there will be 5 on-site fire hydrants throughout the property. Site lighting will consist of dark sky compliant LED building lights and pole mounted lights at a max of 16 feet above grade and a 3,000 K color temperature. The site will provide for significant landscaping along the roadway. As indicated, the berm will be planted, which will help to increase the height and the visibility, or I should say lack of visibility, of the buildings as you drive by on Middle Country Road. We have staggered evergreen trees proposed along the sides and rear lot lines, and shade trees and shrubs are provided throughout the parking lot area. Primarily native plant material has been selected, and all plant material is non-invasive. Just briefly, to walk you through, we in the DEIS, we do discuss an alternative development which is resulting in a yield of 95% more required parking, 44% more sanitary generation, and 6.5% greater water usage than the current proposed industrial development. This alternative to maximum build-out plan provides as-of-right uses such as wholesale business, indoor manufacturing, and commercial sports and recreation facilities. We have designed that alternative where phase one is consistent with with our primary plan, so it'll consist of the 4 industrial buildings for a total of 226,469 square feet. Thank you, that is the alternative. You can zoom into the plan portion of it. And the bottom half of it is our phase two, which consists of a 50,990 square foot sports and recreational facility and a 48,700 square foot wholesale business and a 48,700 square foot indoor manufacturing facility such as a commercial bakery or a brewery. Site access and circulation is similar to the original concept, and parking for each building is provided, fronting those building entrances, as well as loading situated on the sides of the buildings to separate it from passenger vehicles. That is it. I will turn this back over to Keith.
Next, we have Kim Gennaro from PW Grocer.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Kim Gennaro, Vice President at PW Grocer, 630 Johnson Avenue, Bohemia, New York. Our firm prepared the draft environmental impact statement in accordance with the final scope that was issued by this board on November 19th, 2020. We address soils and topography, water resources, ecology, land use, zoning, aesthetics, transportation and parking, historic and archaeological resources, construction-related impacts, and energy resources. We evaluated also the cumulative impacts of other potential developments in consult with the Town Planning Department, and we did evaluate 7 alternatives to the proposed action. The DEIS was extensive. It was comprised of 3 volumes, almost 2,000 pages of technical reports. Just in summary, I'm not going to go over all of this tonight. I'm very interested in questions and comments. But just for those that are watching and here tonight, prepared and appended to this document was the full site plan development drawings, market demand study, which demonstrated a demand for this industrial space with a very high rating for this development. We had borings and percolation tests performed, a soils and materials management plan which will deal with on-site soils sampling we have proposed prior to construction, but I understand there may be some comments asking us to perform such studies now during the FEIS. We prepared a community air monitoring plan should there be on-site soils that are impacted, how to deal with air quality during construction. A stormwater pollution prevention plan and report are included. We did a full BURBS analysis and report of the proposed action and all alternatives. We prepared a water supply source report. This was to evaluate the proposed impacts to the water district, any potential contamination sources, but we also did a groundwater modeling study to support an alternative should it have been found that water could not be provided to provide our own on-site supply well with fire and hydrant. Architectural renderings, elevations were provided, archaeological assessments, including the findings from numerous test pits and analyses, which ultimately ended up with a clearance letter from the state, a comprehensive traffic impact study by Stonefield Engineering, and site plans for all of the alternatives. All of these reports and everything that was performed part of this DEIS was done so in coordination with all of the involved agencies. The Town Planning Department, we consulted on cumulative impacts, maximum development, alternative plan. The Riverhead Water District, many consultations, and which resulted in receiving a draft map and plan report on July 30th. We met with the Riverhead Water District yesterday, and we are working through the connection. Suffolk County Health Department has been consulted. They have received the filing, the STP siting report. The DEC has been consulted. The DOT has been consulted. The New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation has been consulted and has issued a clearance letter for the project. We have service availability letters from NatGrid and from PSE&G. We consulted with the adjacent property owners to evaluate a potential cross-access arrangement, but we were told no by one of two property owners, that this would not be feasible for them, and it would impact their future development plans. And Summit Ridge Energy, we also consulted with and ended up including in our plan the rooftop solar. So the document was a very comprehensive assessment of the project in coordination with the town and all of the involved agencies. We are here tonight to listen to comments and to address any questions. And I'm going to turn it over to Andrew Villari, my colleague, works with Stonefield Engineering, to walk you through traffic.
Good evening. For the benefit of the record, my name is Andrew Villari. That's spelled V as in Victor, I-L-L-A-R-I, Senior Project Manager at Stonefield Engineering and Design, the traffic engineer on behalf of the applicant. I'm a licensed professional engineer and have been accepted in front of numerous similar land use boards in the field of traffic and transportation engineering. My firm prepared a traffic impact study that's dated April 19th, 2021. As Ms. Gennaro mentioned, we submitted very thorough documents. The traffic study alone is over 350 pages. I won't go through every page, I promise. I'll keep my comments brief and really to the most salient points regarding to the traffic impacts when we're looking at off-site environmental impacts. In doing any traffic study, it's important to look at the adjacent roadway network. And this site, it has one frontage roadway, Middle Country Road. It's a New York State DOT roadway. It's a vital east-west roadway that goes throughout the town, connects it with other municipalities along the eastern North Fork. Everybody knows that when you're at an unsignalized intersection on Middle Country Road, it can be challenging to make unsignalized left or right-hand turns. We have had the opportunity to consult with the town's professionals and also the New York State DOT. We had a very productive virtual meeting that was on December 16th. And at that meeting, we discussed some potential access options for this site. What's happened more recently, as recent as May 20th, 2021, the DOT has committed to approving the installation of a traffic signal at the site driveway. So I just want to point out that, referring to the rendering prepared by BLD Architecture, the main site access point along Middle Country Road would be a signalized access point, meaning that it will be fully controlled for lefts and right turns into and out of the site, which is an extremely beneficial part of this application. And we're very happy that the state has committed to being on board with providing such a safe environment along Middle Country Road and also for the potential tenants of this facility. Getting into the traffic study, we did conduct traffic counts on multiple days. We did counts actually in the middle of October. Now that was before the planning board approved the final scope. So what we also did was that later on in December, we did additional counts to supplement those. Why we did in October is we obviously wanted to account for the harvest season in the area, for what it's worth in a COVID year. What we did was we compared the counts from October to December, figured out which were higher during which periods. October was the higher count period. We also referred to some counts that were previously done by the New York State DOT. This was prior to COVID-19. These were done in 2018. We did a comparison to counts from our counts in December to counts done by the DOT to basically do a comparison and figure out how much more traffic should be on the roadway, right? During COVID, a couple months ago, we were all used to seeing less vehicles on the road than we presently see. So what we did was we accounted for that by doing what's called calibration. All of that was within New York State DOT standard guidelines. The project would be phased, where essentially half the project would be built in the first phase, and essentially half the project we built in the second phase. In doing such a thing, we look at 2 build years. So we look at the first phase when when those vehicles would be online, when those buildings would be online, and then we looked at the second phase a couple of years later, as Mr. Brown mentioned. What's important to keep in mind is that the first phase of this project, it takes years to go through approvals, get buildings built, get tenants occupied. So other things may be happening in the town of Riverhead. Other projects in the area may also get built. So what we did was we took our existing baseline traffic counts, we increased those to account for ambient increases in population, increases in workforce nearby. We also accounted for other planned projects in the area that may be online at that time. First and foremost would be the adjacent retail development to the west that's presently occupied by Tractor Supply. That project was approved with additional pad sites for additional retail, so we accounted for all of those retail tenants to be built and generating traffic on Middle Country Road as well. What's also happening in the future, relevant to this project, is improvements at the intersection of Middle Country Road and Edwards Avenue. That's a capital improvement project that the New York State DOT is taking on. It's going to happen regardless of any projects that are going on in the town. What's going to happen at that intersection is everyone knows that it's slightly offset coming north and south. That'll be fixed in the future, and there will also be additional left turn lanes at all approaches to basically help traffic get through that intersection. Accounting for how much traffic this site would generate, the first phase alone, we look at the industry standard Institute of Transportation Engineers. We look at the land use 130, which is the industrial park land use. That tells us how much traffic an industrial park of phase 1 size should generate. We overlay that onto the traffic network to figure out what the impact is. And we find that there would be no significant adverse impact as a result of phase 1 alone, meaning that the amount of traffic that this project would generate in phase 1 has no significant detriment to the network that we studied. Moving on to phase 2, we basically took that same model from phase 1 and replicated it. We grew traffic once again to account for any ambient growth, any other projects that the town may have further on, 2024, 2025. Again, we accounted for additional traffic from the phase 2. Now we have a fully occupied 400 some odd thousand square feet of industrial park. How much traffic does that generate? Phase 2 looks at the totality. And like I mentioned, the New York State DOT is on board with us putting a traffic signal on Middle Country Road, so the site driveway would operate quite well. Very good levels of service, very good operating conditions on Middle Country Road. Now, there was a minor degradation in the level of service at Middle Country Road and Edwards. And what we did to account for that was we were proposing a signal timing change, basically to have the state reconfigure how that intersection operates. Now, we proposed that basically as an option for the state to consider. The state's doing a full overhaul as it is, and all those plans aren't fully developed yet, so it's a very good chance that the state is well aware of that issue and they may change the timing on themselves. So I flag it as a mitigation, but I really don't think it is. I think that the state would actually take care of that for us. So in general, or in conclusion, the significant adverse impacts that you see as a result of this project are minimal. We're accounting for those mitigations off-site. We're developing a traffic signal at the site driveway to facilitate ingress and egress. I think that it's a nice project for the town. It's completely as of right, or set for the impervious coverage calculation, but basically this is a project that should go in the industrial C zoning on this property, and we've done a very thorough coordination effort with the town's consultants and the state DOT, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. We look forward to hearing your comments.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes our presentation, and we appreciate your time and your indulgence as well as the planning staff's indulgence.
Okay, so we're going to let Greg go through his report next, and then I'm sure the board will have a number of questions, and then we'll open it up to the public. But just before Greg goes, I just want to recognize that you guys did a very thorough job. I know you put a lot of work into this, so I just want to recognize that.
Thank you.
All right, Greg?
All right, thank you, Planning Board. Greg Bergman for the Town of Riverhead Planning Department. I just wanted to present, I did have a chance to read through the draft environmental impact statement. I was going to commend the applicants on a very thorough job. I appreciate the opportunity to read 1,000 pages. It is very entertaining. So I'll just recap really quick. I don't want to take up too much time. So when we issued the positive declaration, we basically wanted the applicants to study different impacts, impacts on land, groundwater, et cetera. So I kind of broke down my comments by section. So the impacts on land, they do propose obviously development, which will require the removal of approximately 44,512 cubic yards of material from the project site. This will require a Chapter 229 excavation permit from the Riverhead Town Board. The DEIS did present the phase development plan. The Phase 1A consists of basic site prep and drainage work. Phase 1B would consist of building buildings 1 through 4 and the front infrastructure, the northern portion of the site closest to Middle Country Road. And then Phase 2 comprises buildings 5 through 8 as well as the remaining infrastructure. And that would be the southern portion of the site. The DEIS does acknowledge that during the, based on the historic use of the property, when it was used for agricultural production, pesticides and other chemicals may have been used which are now banned, or metal-based compounds which may have impacted soils on site. As the applicant did state, they did prepare a soil and materials management plan. The DEIS stated that this soil sampling would be conducted prior to construction, but in order to reflect a complete record and understand what's going on in the property, I would recommend that the soil sampling take place and be incorporated into the final EIS. If there are contaminants present on site, that may result in adjustment to their grading and drainage design, may require additional fill. So that is something that should be brought into the FEIS. In terms of impact on groundwater, when the project was initially proposed, they proposed the use of pine barren credits to achieve the sanitary density. As a result of changes to the Suffolk County Department of Health Services stand regulations, they're now proposing an on-site sewage treatment plant, as they said, which would handle 20,000 gallons a day, which is above what the proposed sanitary flow is currently. The DEIS does acknowledge that the groundwater sampling of the subject property has not been performed, and also acknowledges again that based on the historic usage, there could be potential for contamination. So we would recommend that the FEIS should include the results of the groundwater sampling on the subject property taken at multiple locations, with a focus on the shared property boundary with the Sky Materials site based on the industrial use of that project site. They identified depth of groundwater, which ranges between 40.7 feet and 57.7 feet. The site is located north of what's known as the groundwater divide, so the groundwater has a generally northerly flow. They did meet with the Water District. There was a number of conversations that were had. I've spoken to the Water District superintendent. They did prepare a map and plan. The gist of that map and plan was that the Riverhead Water District currently can adequately meet the project demands of their extension, but it said that it would operate on a deficit on the maximum day demand and on a maximum day plus fire flow demand. So there is a planned extension to the water district. I know there is a planned infrastructure. However, the timing of that infrastructure will obviously impact when this project can be served. And as they stated, the DEIS did provide an analysis of supplying on-site water via their own wells. In terms of the impacts on agricultural resources, approximately 41% of the site does contain prime agricultural soils, which are generally located in the southern half of the project site, as well as the northwest and northeast corner. Again, the DEIS notes that the property has been zoned industrial in the town's 2003 comprehensive plan, and it had been zoned industrial basically since 1965. The town has an expansive agricultural protection zone which is intended to promote and protect agricultural activities. As such, the loss of the existing prime agricultural soils does not constitute in and of itself a significant adverse loss of soils, as there are many protected farmland and agricultural uses throughout the town. The ecological inventory was done to assess impacts to plants and animals. There were no threatened or rare species or significant ecological communities known to the site. It does contain habitats that could be suitable for the northern long-eared bat. That would result, clear cutting would be restricted between December 1st and February 28th of any calendar year in the absence of an incidental taking permit from the New York State DEC. They did analyze the grasslands and the forests, which are not a significant loss based on their size. The grasslands do not provide adequate size or habitat for a number of species. And the pitch pine oak forests and hardwood forests located on the property are identified by New York State as demonstrably secure or apparently secure, both in New York State and globally. They did provide the digital renderings, which show the proposed development from multiple vantage points along Middle Country Road, as well as the EPCAL bike trail. They did consult with New York State Office of Historic Preservation. They did a Phase 1A, 1B, and a Phase 2 archaeological assessment, and they found no significant negative impacts as a result of the proposed development. As far as the traffic impact study that was prepared, I won't go into the details, but it is important to note that the analysis was done assuming that New York State 25 and Edwards Avenue intersection, so all of the levels of service were based on after that mitigation at that intersection has happened. Now, obviously, there was no analysis of the current the current levels of service at that intersection, so that needs to be taken into account by the time these buildings are actually occupied, if that improvement has been done at the site. The project, however, I did speak with the DOT. I believe their projected completion date for that work is sometime in 2023. So it does generally coincide with the completion of Phase 1 of the project. There was a minor note that the DEIS stated that Bourbon Boulevard is a roadway under the jurisdiction of the town of Brookhaven, which it is not. They are proposing rooftop solar panels on the roof of the project. They covered approximately 75% of the rooftop with solar, which would allow for a 3.2 megawatt community solar system. Things that should be included in the FEIS would be a glare analysis to ensure that there's no negative impacts to the EPCAL runway or airspace. They should provide details of the lifespan of these panels and identify plans for recycling and/or removal. And I just acknowledge that that 75% rooftop build out, I believe that represents a maximum capacity. Based on the tenancy and occupancy of the buildings, they may need additional rooftop infrastructure. The way the panels are oriented, they may need to access by emergency fire department. So that 3.2 megawatts really is a best case scenario. It could be lower, but again, any way to offset the energy demands in the project is a positive. With regards to the industrial C, the permitted uses, the applicant does acknowledge that the project is designed with 75% warehousing and 25% general industrial. In terms of the parking calculations, warehousing is the least intense parking use on the property. The current uses, based on the warehousing and general industrial, would require 324 parking stalls. As the applicant stated, they did provide a maximum build-out alternative, which requires an approximately 94% more parking than would be allowed by this current plan. So if possible, anywhere in the site, if they can land bank some additional parking, create some additional stalls, perhaps between the buildings, I think that would just be a good future move, because what would happen is when this project comes in and individual tenants come in to occupy these spaces, if they're kind of built into this little box, it leaves little room for flexibility. So that's just a recommendation from staff. And that wraps up my review.
All right, thank you, Greg. So I do have a few questions here, and Mr. Brown, I guess you could either answer them or relay them to whichever one of the experts you wanted to pass them along to.
Sure.
We did receive a copy of the map and plan from the Water District. It was in our packets last week, and you mentioned that it mentions or concludes that the Water District can service the proposed development, but it would be operating at a deficit. And it pretty much concludes that it would require $2.6 million from the developer to construct a 0.4 million gallon concrete tank. So my question is, are you prepared to do that for the full fire protection load that you're required to have there?
So thank you for that question, Mr. Chairman. We actually met with Riverhead Water District yesterday, myself, Ms. Gennaro, Mr. Grogan, and we had an extensive conversation. We have an alternative plan that we presented to them. They're considering it right now. So my answer would be it's in the works. We responded to them in terms of the map and plan that we received. We pointed out some discrepancies there. But overall, we understood that this was an issue, from the outset, and we're working our way through it.
Okay, so for the purpose of this DEIS, I think it should be put on the record, any alternatives that you may be considering, because it could have other environmental impacts that may not have been identified.
So I'm going to defer to Ms. Gennaro. Kim?
The only alternative that we evaluated in the document, we evaluated an on-site supply well with a hydrant well and fire protection. After yesterday's meeting, we talked about the alternative of domestic supply from the water district and have the applicant put in the fire wells. We understand that requires an addition, it requires an analysis that will take out the supply well and evaluate just fire protection, but we're discussing this. We also need to discuss with the applicant the proposed solution that was given to us in the draft map and plan report, which is the $2.6 million investment in the storage tank. We, again, this is ongoing. Any discussions or anything that comes out of this, we would include in the FEIS to ensure that we have a complete secret record in order to get to the end point.
And if I could, I'd just add that we also talked about potential financing of the $2.4 million, so.
Okay. So, as this board is the lead agency for this environmental review, I think we should be included in any of those potential impacts. And if you do put in a private well for fire protection, I mean, a lot of questions do come to mind that are going to require further analysis. You are aware that the town operates a well both on the EPCAL property and close by on Fresh Pond Avenue. And you mentioned that you did groundwater modeling there.
We did,
Did that take into account your
yes,
private fire well
yeah.
and any impacts on the capture zone of those public municipal wells?
Absolutely.
It did?
Yes, we're outside of there's no impact on, I think it's Wellfield 7 and 12, if I have the numbers correct. One is to the northeast, and one is directly north of us, and we discussed this yesterday with the Water District. We also evaluated the plume on what would be the impact of capture running a supply well with the fire suppression and hydrant. And there are projections on a 30-year travel time, a 32-year travel time. All of that's in the analysis, but I think at this point it's moot because the supply well comes out, which is that continuous run well. Right now, I think after we got the draft map and plan report, the decision is, do we want to go with the alternative and evaluate just fire suppression, or go with what the district has proposed in their draft map and plan report to us? And because we just received it, and I don't think that the applicant is there yet.
I think that's fair to say.
Our understanding is that there would be another meeting within a couple of weeks with with finance on how the applicant could do this.
All right, I had read in another report, too, that the Water District was restricted on their pumpage on one of those wells because it had a direct impact on one of the freshwater wetlands there and the wildlife. So was that considered in your analysis?
We evaluated all wetlands, surface waters, everything was in that model.
But my question is
No
with
impact.
your fire well running,
There was no impact to any off-site wells, wetlands, or surface waters including a potable supply well. So if you take the potable supply well out, the impact would be negligible because the fire wells are only going to run when needed, or
Right,
once
but-
a month for inspection.
Right, but when you get permitted for whatever fire flow is necessary, 1,000 gallons a minute, that is considered to be running all the time when they do their analysis.
Well, that's something,
That's how
right.
the state reviews it, as if it was going to
That's
run all
not
the time.
my understanding is that there would be an assumption on an average usage. But I can also bring up Brian Grogan, who may be able to opine more on this. one of our engineers.
I believe you also mentioned the sewer treatment plant on property, right?
Yes,
So where exactly is that plant going to be located, and where is the discharge effluent water going to be located?
that's in the center of the property, and I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to pass
Okay.
it off to my colleague, Brian Grogan.
Okay.
So the sewage treatment plant is in the center of the property, on the eastern side. Recharge pools are just adjacent to the treatment plant tankage itself. As part of the groundwater modeling, right where that laser pointer is, as part of the groundwater modeling PW Grosser performed, we evaluated the contributing areas to, if we were to install our own potable water service wells with respect to the capture zone of those wells versus where where the leaching pools are located for the SDP. They're outside of the capture zones for those wells. So that was kind of taken into consideration. Again, that's the alternate scenario. It's not necessarily what the applicant's looking for. We've had preliminary discussions with Jason Heim from Suffolk County Health Department with respect to this layout, and that helped prompt some additional conversations with the Riverhead Water District to kind of move that away from that being a possibility.
Will there be any odors from that process that were studied or looked at?
The health department for these Appendix A changes requires an odor control system. It's usually two 55-gallon, more or less, carbon vessels as part of this treatment plant. It is an entirely enclosed treatment plant, so it has a stainless steel decking on top of it, and it's piped with an odor control system.
Okay.
What is the distance between those two buildings?
I believe the distance is about 60 feet or so.
And is that sufficient enough space?
Correct. The health department has recently changed Appendix A of their standards to allow for sewage treatment plants that serve solely commercial properties to be within 10 feet of a building line to the sewage treatment plant. But again, this application so far, we have submitted the SDP design to the Suffolk County Health Department, and it's currently pending review in their office.
66.
Okay. So it was 66 feet between the two buildings.
Okay. I think Jacqueline mentioned about a ZBA variance for impervious surface. What percentage, how much of a variance do you need?
I can go on my tippy toes. 11.8%.
11.8%. Okay, thank you. Now, as far as the traffic, I heard you mention a few times that you concluded that there was no significant impacts. We've kind of been through this before and heard that before. I'm not challenging your research. You're much more qualified than I am. But, we heard this along all the development along Route 58, no significant impacts on just about every project that came along, and we did study after study. And on a busy day, it could take you from Splish Splash to the end of 25. It could take you 20 minutes to get through there, but everybody concluded no significant traffic impact. So I'm just wondering, as far as we all agree that Edwards and 25 is a very bad choke point. And I think Greg touched on the timing of the construction. I think you said, Greg, they're going to start in 2023, the state?
I believe, and I'm not 100% sure, I believe they're going to begin in 2022, and I think the anticipated completion is 2023.
Okay, so my question would be, how does that coincide with the beginning of your construction?
So you're asking about when would the improvements at Edwards occur versus when would the...
Once they're completed, I mean, when that construction's going on, it's going to even be worse, I'm sure. But the completion of that in comparison to when you anticipate starting your construction on Phase 1?
Well, I can tell you, what's published on the state's website is that construction is expected to be completed in the fall of 2023. As far as when construction would begin, that would be the end of 2022, start of 2023. So that's when that intersection would be under construction. As far as when the HK Ventures site would be under construction, I mean, we're eager to get going as soon as possible once we have all our entitlements. So, there probably could be some overlap, but it also could work out very well where signal improvements are finished at Edwards and Middle Country Road, and tenants start coming online for this project. So it could work out quite well.
Any consideration given to the activity of the charter school and the buses and time of day?
Is it the charter school that's currently operating? I'm not sure I'm following the question.
Yeah, no, it's, there's a crossing guard there, it backs up every morning. I mean, the truck traffic there, they can't, obviously they can't make the turns now, they go into the other lane, but the traffic school, the charter school is a little bit further to the east, and that causes backup when the buses are rolling in and out of there because the traffic attendant stops traffic. So I didn't hear you make any mention of that in your report.
So the school, if it was operational when we did our traffic counts, and it was, doing exactly what you mentioned, backing up traffic in the area, we would have observed that in the counts that we did in October and December, and then accounted for that in our analysis of the existing condition.
Right, but when you do a traffic count, you put out the tripwires, or somebody's physically there watching it?
Both.
Both?
Both.
And do you recall what time of day it was, or if the school was open?
I'm not sure if the schools are open. I can give you the days with specificity. And we did them during peak commuting times when school traffic would be, people would be arriving for school and also dismissal. And then also I want to point out that the traffic counts that we had done, those were exactly in accordance with the final scope that was worked out with the planning board and also the planning board's consultant. So when we did our traffic counts, we did them on Wednesday, October 14th, 2020, starting at 7 a.m. till 9 a.m. That's when we expect that there would be school buses arriving if school is in
Was
session.
somebody physically there to do that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And then again in the evening, 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock, trying to capture that afternoon commute home. We did counts on Saturday, October 17th, 2020. Those are in the middle of the day, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. We did counts again later on in December 12th, that was a Saturday, 2020, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Tuesday, December 15th, 2020, 7 a.m., 9 a.m. again, and again in the afternoon, 4 to 7, and then one more Tuesday, December 22nd, 2020, the same a.m. and p.m. time periods.
And no significant impact?
That's correct.
That's the conclusion. Okay. Greg, did the town hire a traffic consultant to review this?
Yes, they provided comments.
They provided comments. Are they here tonight? Okay. Do you know the summary of those conclusions?
I don't have them available right now, but they were distributed to the board.
I think it might be beneficial in the final EIS to analyze, as you mentioned, the timing of the beginning of construction. I think that's what the board was trying to get at, is that if this site's being being constructed, there's trucks, there's construction workers utilizing that intersection, and the mitigation has not yet happened at 25 in Edwards. If the board would like, current counts at that intersection, in the absence of the mitigation, that could be incorporated into the FEIS, I would think.
All right, thank you.
One more point, just to wrap up the discussion on the charter school. This site is located on Middle Country Road. The majority of the traffic that would be destined to and from this facility would be via the expressway. Should make sense. People are trying to get to other places on the island. You have trucks coming and going. They're likely going to get to the expressway. To do that, you have a number of options to get to, exit 71. You could also, the predominant movement here is actually going to be to get to the expressway, to go east on Middle Country Road, get to Edwards, and then make a right. So the amount of traffic that goes through the intersection, going eastbound through Edwards and then continuing on past where the charter school is, we don't envision that being a predominant movement. We're anticipating most of that traffic to make the right turn to head towards the LIE. Now, you could have a small percentage of traffic that goes through the intersection, but that would be local traffic, maybe people that work at this facility. So the impact in front of the school, impact in traffic going through or making a left and heading north, we don't see that as the major flow here in the future.
So the focus or point of my question was between the trip counters and the visual counting. The trip counters obviously don't see traffic backing up. They just count how many tires go over the cord, right?
Well, they also are looking at general progression in the area, yes. So they're counting both, manual turning movements, so.
Let me be clear. The wire that goes across the
Yeah.
road can tell if traffic is backing up
No.
for any amount of time?
The human can.
Exactly. So that was my question, and you didn't see any of that happening at the intersection.
I didn't do the traffic counts myself. What I do know is how many vehicles went through the intersection. I can't confirm.
Okay,
We'd be happy to work with your town's consultant and make sure that we address this concern.
okay.
Thank you.
So, any other board member? I'm sorry I asked so many questions all at once.
I was just curious if anybody knew when that ground was tilled last. It's got to be probably in the early 60s. I'm just wondering about the pesticides. Anybody know? No?
I heard Mr. Bergen say that in terms of testing of the soil was part of the.
I'm just curious what year was tilled because there was different
Yeah.
levels of pesticides, back then.
We would have to get back to you on that.
No, that's okay. It's got to be probably the early 60s.
That was a concern I had as well, and in reading this, obviously, there are certain things that are mandated here, but, well, during the purchase, there were no test holes taken at all, any soil samples at all? And depth, and what did they find?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm going to defer to Ms. Gennaro.
During the, and it hasn't been acquired yet, there was a phase one that was done by H2M, and it identified the potential for metals and pesticides associated with the former ag use. It was always considered that we would do the soil testing prior to construction and mitigate either with capping or removal, whatever is required. So nothing was done by the applicant, though, prior or part of this transaction.
Ed, anything else? George? Dick, do you have any questions? No. Okay, we'll open it up to the public. Anyone in the public have any comments or questions? Please come on up and identify yourself for the record, please.
John McAuliffe. I live in Roanoke Landing in Riverhead, and I'm very involved with EPCAL Watch. This property borders onto EPCAL, so that's part of our concern. I'm going to raise two different kinds of environmental questions. One, in a sense, is an aesthetic environmental question. Looking at the design, essentially we see the great risk of the Seldonization of Middle Country Road. We can imagine projecting forward the impact of this institution, this development, and then other developments that will come, and then what EPCAL will bring. The rural character, which is already somewhat compromised, will become more compromised, and I hope you take that into consideration. The other question that I have is that well, first of all, I meant to congratulate you on maintaining the Zoom participation. I wish the town board had followed the same example. I think that makes it a much more accessible program, event that you're having, a meeting that you're having.
Well, we can't take credit for that. The town board required it for public hearing.
Gave you discretion. I see. They're giving you what they won't give to themselves. Okay.
I don't know. They authorized it.
At any rate, the reason I bring that up is that the EPCAL relationship is that if ultimately the EPCAL contract with the Jamasians goes down, it would seem to me that this is the kind of project that ought to be inside of the EPCAL property, not adjacent to and expanding the impact of this kind of development in that area. The other question is of a different kind of environmental. It's a cultural or moral environment. The name that was not mentioned in the introduction was Arik Kislin. He is, according to the News Review, he is the primary developer. The News Review story describes his history. He's done a lot of different kinds of projects, but he also has enough of a relationship to the Russian mafia that it torpedoed a big project in Boston, a gambling project that also forced his withdrawal from a project in Nevada. From the News Review, it reads, "We received information from the FBI that Arik Kislin is in fact known to them and has been linked to various members of Eurasian organized crime," the Gaming Commission noted in its report, which remains available online. Quote, "The FBI indicated that historical law enforcement information indicates that Kislin handles large-scale investments within the United States for wealthy members of EOC, of Eurasian organized crime, and that Kislin's activities focus on laundering EOC profits from overseas." So that I think that whether it is you or the town board, someone needs to look at the investment money that is coming into this project and what its origins may be. Thank you.
That is certainly outside of the scope of this board and certainly outside of the hearing tonight, that the last bit of information you shared us. But the first two are on the record and will be considered.
Well, as I say, it involves a question of moral environment and the town as a whole.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Barbara Blass, and I live in Jamesport. First of all, as DEISs go, this was really very thorough and really well organized. And Greg, I actually enjoyed reading it, isn't it? I don't know. That says something, I know. But I do have several comments that I would like to submit for the record. Land use and site layout. The purpose and intent of the Industrial C zoning use district as described in our code is for moderate-sized businesses, generally defined as those with less than 40 employees. Page 13 of the DEIS describes on-site employment of 459 people. The proposed parking spaces of 326 parking stalls suggest that more than 300 employees will be located at the site during normal business hours. This doesn't seem to be consistent with the purpose and the intent of the Industrial C zoning use district. You have a cafeteria of 1,500 square feet to accommodate 459 on-site employees. Wouldn't that necessitate employees possibly having to travel off-site for meals? In addition to the number of on-site employees, the site and the site layout doesn't seem to represent what we have become to expect from a campus-style layout. The request for a zoning board variance to address a proposed 11.8% increase in impervious surface area is not generated by a recognizable hardship or pre-existing burden upon permitted development. The FEIS should address an alternative layout in greater conformance with the minimum standards before a request for relief is considered. Soils. The Plymouth loamy sands and Riverhead sandy loam soils are USDA Class 2 prime ag soils. The DEIS states that approximately 44,512 cubic yards of these soils will be exported to a New York State DEC-approved Part 360 solid waste facility. The FEIS should describe and explain this irrevocable loss, as well as the reason the soils, if they cannot be accommodated on site, are going to a solid waste facility and not to another agricultural site within the town of Riverhead, as has historically been the practice. Excavation and grading. The DEIS fails to indicate that a Chapter 229 permit is necessary and that a $2 cubic yard export fee as well as an on-site monitor would be required. The applicant's comprehensive soil management plan includes soil sample collection and chemical analyses. The results of those lab tests should be received by the town as well as the owner, and I understand, based upon representation this evening, that that will be the case. The DEIS states the area of landscaping is 7.79 acres, yet offers that only 2.0 acres are being irrigated. The FEIS must address how the nearly 5.79 acres of landscaped areas are provided supplemental water, especially during establishment. The on-site soils are described as highly permeable. The DEIS indicates a proposed irrigation of only 1/2 inch of water per week. I just question whether that's adequate. The site plans provided by Key Engineering include notes that the landscape contractor is responsible for plant material survival for the first year only. The FEIS should describe landscape maintenance plans that extend beyond 1 year. Riverhead IDA, the DEIS estimated the project would generate in taxes approximately $1.3 million with no IDA support funding. During the July 19th meeting of the Riverhead IDA, the applicant's representative stated that IDA support was, quote, an inducement and a necessity because of the applicant's need to generate investor confidence. The applicant's representatives explained the project was valued at $66 million with a $4 million per month income based on 100% occupancy. It was further stated that the project cannot go forward without the assistance of the IDA. I didn't see any reference to that in the DEIS, but during that same IDA presentation, the applicant indicated that an economic impact report would be forthcoming. If that document differs from what is included in Appendix D of this DEIS, then that report should be included in the FEIS as well. According to statements on page 69 and 70 of the DEIS, water from the Riverhead Water District is not readily available for this project and for other future developments unless, quote, interconnections and storage as well as approvals of pending applications with the New York State DEC are completed. I do understand that there's discussions have been taking place, but I'm just reading from what was posted online. As you know, there is currently a related Article 78 proceeding against the DEC, which could be relevant here. As the site is partially within the Riverhead Water District and partially beyond its service area, the Suffolk County Department of Health Services may agree that an on-site supply wells are needed or permitted. But based upon current circumstances, the FEIS should discuss the feasibility of those on-site wells for potable water and fire protection requirements and to determine whether this is actually a realistic option. And finally, just a general comment, the DEIS contains numerous references to compliance with the existing 2003 comprehensive plan, which is indeed the prevailing plan at this time, but we should all recognize in 2020 the town contracted with AKRF for a townwide update to that plan, and that work is ongoing. I may have additional comments to submit during the written comment period, but for now, I thank you very much for your time and attention this evening.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Anyone else from the public have any comments or questions? Anyone on Zoom? Is anyone on the Zoom meeting with us that wants to comment or have questions?
Yes, we're going to bring in Mike Foley.
Who?
Mike Foley.
Mike Foley. Mr. Foley, can you hear us?
I'm bringing him up. Different mode. Got it on.
I think I am now connected. Good evening. My name is Mike Foley. I live in Reef Park. And Barbara Blass is a tough act to follow. She's incredibly researched and has some questions that I'm sure will get the attention of the planning board. For my questions and comments, I'd just like to start with two questions for the subject matter expert advocates for the developer. The traffic study gentleman was talking about doing a traffic study in October of 2020 when we were in the midst of a pandemic that had a majority, if not an overwhelming majority, of the students staying home. Was that a consideration for the planning gentleman's calculation? Is he available to answer that
Yes.
question, Stan?
Could you,
Sorry.
did you get the question?
Not exactly, I couldn't hear.
So, Mr. Foley asked, when you did the traffic study, it was in the middle of the pandemic, and for all likelihood, the school was probably closed at that time, and was that considered?
Absolutely. So I mentioned in my testimony that we did counts at a specific location in 2020 during the COVID pandemic. That location was the exact same location as what the DOT counted in 2018 prior to COVID-19 being a thing. Those counts were done in December. They were done during the day in early December. What we did was we compared our COVID counts to the pre-COVID counts from DOT, and we took our counts, which may have been low, and we increased them accordingly to get back to what a standard operating condition was. And that standard operating condition includes traffic that was going to and from schools in 2018.
Thank you for that clarification. You might be the same subject matter expert, so let me ask my next question quickly so you don't have to get back to the microphone. I heard an awful large number of soil being removed from the site. I blinked when I thought I heard it, and as you know, I couldn't run it back because we can't record your hearings. Did you say there were hundreds of thousands of cubic yards of soil being removed? And if so, and even if I stand corrected, could you calculate exactly how many truckloads of soil will be removed from that site during this construction?
Yes. So I can't comment on the total cubic yardage of soil to be exported, but we did do an analysis of the construction-related traffic. The project would be constructed in 3 phases. In this report, we referred to them as Phase 1A, 1B, and 2. 1A would consist of the construction of the recharge basin that's furthest to the south on the property, and also the associated dry well network to facilitate the on-site drainage. The site would be cleared to accommodate that development and also a access road to do such. Phase 1A would generate 30 trucks for the removal of material. The amount of topsoil to be removed would be 1,017 trucks based on our projections. That does not occur overnight. That occurs over a 6-month period, which equates to about 10 to 15 trucks a day. And you account for an 8-hour workday. It's not that many trucks on a daily basis. That's Phase 1A. I could keep going through 1B and 2 as well.
Yeah, please do, because again, we're in contemplation of a project that's going to encompass a long period of time. And I am curious, you just mentioned about 1,050 truckloads over a 6-month period, which, as you stated, is about 10 truckloads a day, which isn't a whole lot if you have access and turn lanes on 25 and Edwards Avenue. But as Stan brought up, and as I think Greg Berman had mentioned, that the contemplation of the expansion of that choke point isn't due to start until 2023. You are looking to get approval on an application that will start your work in 2022. Now, I am one of those people that one of the representatives had mentioned, takes Edwards Avenue 71, go north to Sound Avenue, and then I go east 2.8 miles, past the Baiting Hollow Vineyards, which I'm very anxious to speak about in a little while as well, to get to my home. So the alternative traffic that you're talking about is good for people passing through, but it doesn't really consider the residents' inconvenience for a project of this magnitude before the improvements on that choke point as Stan most adequately described it. So in 1B and 1C, if you could just very briefly, and this is my last question, then I have a few comments. How many additional truckloads are we talking about here? And what is the time frame for that? Because I thought you had mentioned by year's end in 2023, this entire project was going to be concluded.
So if I may, could I just clarify for the record, the testimony was 44,000
Yeah.
cubic yards,
Okay.
not the hundreds of thousands that Mr.
But
Foley
the trips are
suggested.
accurate.
Yeah, and I'll let Mr. Valari explain that.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, and I believe the question could be summarized as there would be construction-related traffic from this project that may access the intersection of Middle Country Road and Edwards prior to the state's improvement project, if I'm understanding the concept correctly?
Yes.
Yeah, and I understand that concern. You know, we're looking forward to seeing the area being improved with the traffic signal at our site driveway and also the new traffic signal at Edwards. It doesn't happen overnight. You know, construction-related impacts are necessary for a temporary amount of time. You know, we're looking forward to the future when the project has the benefit of those intersections being
Right down
improved.
the road from you, Grumman put out about 3,500 people every single day, and everybody got home safely, you know. I don't think those 10 trucks a day are gonna kill anybody.
That's another great point. I think that the amount of trucks over the course of a day, it's not really an impact that you'd be perceptible to, because there are already many trucks that go through that same intersection, likely going to the same route to exit 71.
But back to the truckloads in the 1B and the 1C, how many truckloads are we talking about? In addition to the 1,000 for the 1A part of the project?
Sure. I should mention that 1A is the most intense in terms of off-site removal. That's when all the material would be displaced. Phase 1B, that would be the clearing and grading of the northern half of the site to build the buildings in Phase 1. We're anticipating that there would be, I'll just get to the chase, that's about 1 to 2, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to read the report real quickly.
Thank you.
Yeah, so actually for Phase 1A, the material that would be cut would actually be stored on the southern part of the site. Therefore, there would be no off-site construction-related impacts from fill being transported from the site. All you'd have in that case is the ancillary arrival of equipment materials and, equipment. So that's really boils down to 1 to 2 trucks over the course of a week basis, because most of the materials would be there, the equipment would be there. So it's not the same amount of impact of traffic coming and going relating to construction. Phase 2 is the final phase. It's the clearing and grading of the remaining southern half. That would generate the removal of 309 trucks of topsoil that left the site. There's also 314 trucks associated with exporting cut material, and ancillary deliveries for construction equipment, roll-off dumpsters for debris. We believe that Phase 2 really boils down to about 2 trucks a day. Really, what this is going to boil down to is that Phase 1A, when you have the most off-site removal. And like we've mentioned, that's only about 10 to 15 trucks in a total day.
Well, I appreciate that breakdown. Thank you very much. Let me just get into my thoughts on this project. I think John McAuliffe made a very good point in that the EPCAL project is in contemplation of 2 million square feet of industrial space. And this location in Calverton, although it is certainly zoned accordingly, is about 20% of the total space that is contemplated in EPCAL. So I guess the question I have to ask the planning board, and Greg Berman as well, is that we are alluding to the 2003 master plan. And as all of you know, we are in the middle of putting the newest master plan together. We've spent about $700,000 with AKRF that from the work session that I listened to this morning, sounds like it's really starting to gear up. And I understand from the developer's standpoint what the rush is, but I would ask the town board and the planning board to ask themselves, what is the rush on putting something this size in Calverton when we're in the process of putting together a master plan that will take us through the next 20 years? We had some issues with the 2003 master plan. Speaking parochially, at the entranceway of my park in Reeves Park, in what I consider a dead of night change on the master plan, they were putting strip malls on the entranceway on the northeast and northwest parts of Park Road and Sound Avenue, which is now called Tom Kelly Memorial Road. Tom Kelly, as I believe you all know, was a Reeves Park resident, New York City firefighter that ran into two World Trade Center to save people when it fell down on him, and two other of my neighbors. And it took a 10-year fight from the community to stop this strip mall invasion on the historic Sounds Avenue corridor. And certainly I'll invite all of you on the morning of September 11th, actually on the evening of September the 11th, to commemorate the 20th anniversary of that tragic day, right in our beautiful Memorial Park that has replaced that strip mall. So thinking about that, and thinking about the amount of developments that they're discussing right now. And let me just throw water into the mix. Right now, we have a major problem with CMA Mines that is being Article 78'd in Suffolk County and Albany. We have an issue with Manorville water for Riverhead residents. And now there is a dispute as to whether the Riverhead Water Company, which can remediate that for about $11 million, or the Suffolk County Water Authority that could remediate it for $7 million, is going to remedy that situation. So we're in a turf war for clean water in our existing Riverhead footprint. As I'm sure you also know, we're in the process of upgrading well 5, which now has PFAS and PFOA on acceptable levels. With all of these water issues that we have, with 2 wells that are close enough to this application to consider whether they need to drill their own well to get water supply there, which now involves the DEC. My main concern here is that they are trying to jump the gun on this application before this town has an adequate chance to reevaluate the zoning and reevaluate the future of our town. I'm very much concerned about that. And before we strip one more tree from one more piece of land, it would be, in my opinion, prudent on the part of the town board and the planning board and everybody else to put some kind of a moratorium mindset for all additional developments until that master plan is completed. I know that's just a comment, and I'll leave it at that, and I thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Your points are well taken, and a lot of your comments are really outside of the purview of our board, but they're well taken and they were good points. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
There's a lady that had her hand up back there to speak.
Before we do that, Mr. Chairman, if I may, just to answer a couple of points that Mr. Foley made. Just the one was Mr. Valari's point, just to expand upon it. In accordance with the phasing plan, Phase 2 would occur in 2024, which would be after the planned improvements to the Edwards Avenue intersection by the DOT in 2023.
If they start on time.
Correct. And the second point was about the drilling of the well. What we talked about before, was Ms. Gennaro testified to, was that the well would be for fire suppression, not for potable water, just to make that clear. Okay?
Right.
Thank you.
Is anybody else on Zoom?
Yes.
Who?
Kelpie Turchin.
Ms. Turchin, are you with us?
Hello there. My name is Taki Turchin. Sorry for the lighting. My name is Taki Turchin. I live in Calverton. I happen to be the president of the Calverton Civic Association. I'm speaking personally, but also somewhat as a part of the specific as well. Concerns that were brought up tonight by previous members of the public, I won't extend my version of those, but I would like to echo the water contamination issues in the town of Riverhead, and especially facing the Manorville homeowners. I think it's about 64 or so homeowners who have been asking for public water for over 5 years, that when considering a project of this magnitude, I'd like to see that the residents are taken into consideration first as far as water. And additionally, my question is directed to the traffic study folks. While I was listening, I'm not sure if I missed it. Fresh Pond Avenue is on the northern side of Middle Country Road, and I don't believe I heard anything addressed as far as the traffic of that road entering the Middle Country Road heading east. It's basically making a left turn into traffic. Could someone address that and see if that's been a part of the traffic study? In addition, while you're answering that, my last question is, what's the effect of routing existing traffic into and off of the property, subject property, heading west to the next exit on the Long Island Expressway versus heading into the bottleneck and the choke area of Edwards Avenue and Route 25? Thank you very much for your time.
I should have mentioned in my testimony, I didn't want to go through all 352 pages, but I'm getting close now. The intersections that we looked at for the traffic impact analysis, that was strictly outlined in the final scope that was approved. Moving in a clockwise fashion, we first looked at Middle Country Road and Berman Boulevard. It's the signalized access point to EPCAL. Further east on Middle Country Road, we also looked at Middle Country Road and Fresh Pond Avenue, unsignalized intersection. It's also the four-leg intersection with the Tractor Supply. Further east, get to Middle Country Road and Edwards. And then south on Edwards, we looked at the impact of the intersection that's formed by the off-ramp from the eastbound expressway at 71 at Edwards Avenue. That's where Nugent also starts up and heads you further southeast. Those are the intersections that we studied. So as far as turning movements at Middle Country Road and Fresh Pond, unsignalized intersection, absolutely, we looked at all that.
Is all this information online? Can citizens, residents
Yes, it is.
find it?
Yes, it is.
But I think this question is further to the west at Wading River Manable Road.
Manor Road, yeah.
No, we did not look at that intersection. It was not identified as part of the final scope.
Fresh Pond was though, and that's, I thought that was.
That was, I thought.
Right,
that was-
but I think she also asked
no, she was-
about routing some of the traffic further to the west so they can get on at
Yeah.
exit 69.
Yeah, we absolutely could have analyzed traffic doing different patterns. Half goes east, half goes west. What we did actually was we funneled traffic towards Edwards and Middle Country Road, and under the assumption that that's a conservative measure because more traffic would be going there. It may be actually split up in reality. More traffic goes west than east. We purposely funneled it there to see what the impact on the intersection was. We called it a choke point, but in the future it won't be. That's the whole point of the DOT improvement. So I just wanted to point that out. Correct, and also the closest route, not adding too much circuitous traffic.
Okay. Did that answer your questions?
It did, and I think it prompts me to request a further investigation to the further west point and on the Middle Country Road to see what effect it would be to direct traffic into and onto the subject property. I'd like to see more information on that, if possible, please.
I don't think,
I'm not sure
ma'am,
I understand what the comment was.
I think.
Ma'am, Ma'am, I don't think that the construction of Wading River Road, okay, would lend itself to vehicles and that much traffic because it's a very windy road through residential areas. I just don't think it would lend itself the way it's constructed currently.
I see. I was actually talking about the intersection because isn't the entrance to the to the Long Island Expressway just a bit further west on Route 25?
That would be, I believe you're referring then to what would be exit 68? That would be
William Floyd.
William Floyd
Yeah,
Parkway.
William Floyd,
That's-
exactly.
I think that's just too far to try to direct traffic. I mean,
dual lanes there,
that's
too.
6 miles, I would think.
Well, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, the point trying to be made here is that during construction, if Edwards and 25 is an issue, perhaps some of the traffic could be routed west out of the site as opposed to east. I think that's the point that's trying to be made.
Yes, thank you very much for rounding that out for me.
Thank you, now we understand.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope, that's it. Thank you very much
All
for
right,
your time.
thank you. We had one other person, just come up, yeah, you can come up and just please identify yourself for the record.
Can I lower the mask?
Sure.
Thank you. I had no intention of coming up here. My name is Marie Zier. I am a commercial real estate broker, and my specialty really is the town of Riverhead and Calverton. I'm in business 41 years, and for the past 30 years, I've represented properties all throughout Calverton, and I represented Northrop Grumman. I want to bring a little sanity to this project. I have been marketing properties, and I have been trying to find buildings and space for all the people that want to come to this particular area. There's been an insurgence of companies going out to the East End. There's no place for these people to go, these small businesses, 2,500 square feet, 5,000 square feet. There is no place at all for them to go. There isn't a day that goes by where I don't get a request for space. I had a broker the other day who came to me who has somebody for 500,000 square feet. I have 100,000 square feet, 20,000 square feet. We cannot put them anywhere. And I wanted to bring this to your attention because we're talking about kind of an anti-business attitude here, when it's really pro-business and it's serving what the needs are of the future of Long Island. There are not enough distribution facilities throughout Long Island, and just so you should know what's going on in the marketplace here, we hardly have any space left for anybody anywhere on Long Island, let alone here in Calverton. It is very serious. And the companies are growing, and companies are coming out from Queens and New York, and they are trying to locate to other areas, and other people are trying to move out east, but there's no place to go. What do we do? What do we do? So this project addresses that need, and that's really what I want to say, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, I don't have a question, it's just a point. I don't think it's fair to label this as anti-business, because I would label it as poor planning if the town's infrastructure can't handle a project like this. We're talking about poor roadways, and we're talking about the lack of water in the town of Riverhead, which is documented, and people need what little water is available for contamination issues. So to say it's anti-business, I think, is a huge misstatement. It's more of poor planning if we go forward without addressing and mitigating these infrastructure problems that the town has.
I understand that, and that should be addressed. I have no issue with that at all. But I'm just adding for the information to let you know that there are people, there are small businesses that cannot grow here, and they're starting to consider moving to other states. And I'm hoping that we don't have the exodus that we had in the past, in the late 80s, as a matter of fact. It was just tragic. There was so many people that left. And I think it's a serious situation. Of course you have to address those issues, and I'm hoping that you will. But I'm talking about the people that come to me and ask for properties out in this area so they could survive and service the community. Okay?
Sure,
Thank
that's
you
our
for your
job as
time.
planners.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
John McAuliffe again. Could you clarify, is this land currently owned by HK? Or is this a project that is to go in, or they would buy the land if the project was approved?
Is the purchase subject to approval? Mr. Brown?
The exact details I'm not at liberty to say, Mr. Chairman, but I will say that they're in contract.
All right, because I think that becomes relevant if, and I don't know whether Mrs. Zier is related to the real estate broker, David Zier, who is the applicant's representative for HK, but if so, that should be clarified. But I think obviously EPCAL is a lot of land that is already somewhat prepared and already has a traffic light, and that I would hope that the planning board could consider, if this land, if they're not already committed in purchase of this land, that they suggest that they discuss with the town board moving this project within the EPCAL property to give the town a further reason to look at the disastrous contract that was written with the Germasians. Also, I think aesthetically, I mean, this is ugly as sin, I'm sorry to say, and having it inside the EPCAL area far from the road would be much preferable to having it adjacent to what ought to be an attractive area.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments or questions? We have another one? Mr. Foley?
He's here for Baiting Hollow as well.
Yes, he wants to come back to this.
Hi, I'm here just to comments on that real estate brokers talking about not having any available land. Has she ever considered trying to backfill for all of the strip malls that have empty storefronts right now? Boy. Oh, shit. Awful sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. If we could,
We heard everything, Mr. Foley.
I'm awful sorry. As an old guy, I hit mute and then hit video mute and all this stuff, but I do appreciate one more shot at this. That real estate broker that just came up talking about the lack of available space, I would ask her to drive up and down Route 58 and Main Street, and coming to a mall near you, the Tanger Mall. There have been studies that with the different shopping regimens going on before the pandemic, but now especially after the pandemic, people are shopping online. All of these mom and pop storefronts and strip malls and Tanger Mall areas are going to have vacant space all over the place. I would suggest to that real estate broker, maybe she should contact some of the open space areas right now and backfill into those places to support the places that are hanging on by a thumbnail and maybe getting additional traffic due to her backfilling for some of her clients. Thank you.
all right, thank you, Mr. Foley. Okay, so anyone else? I'd like to wrap this up.
If I may, I just want to respond to what something Mr. Foley said. Ms. Gennaro pointed out in the report that that there's an industrial submarket report and a fundamental market study that was prepared and submitted as part of the EIS. And just also, there's approximately 6.4 million square feet of industrial space in eastern Suffolk, of which the current vacancy rate is 5.4, which has been decreasing over the past year. So just to expand upon that. So, Mr. Chairman, that wraps up our presentation. We want to thank the Planning Board and the Planning Department for your time and your attention. We appreciate all the comments, and we'll be taken under advisement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Another repeat raise hand.
Who was that?
Tuckby Turchin.
Ms. Turchin? You're on again. I just ask if you could please be brief, second time around.
I'll be very brief. In listening to the comments that have happened since I spoke, and listening to Ms. Zier's comment, it occurs to me that perhaps this is not the good timing for such a project in the location on Route 25, and perhaps we should be taking into consideration our comprehensive plan and the size and availability of EPCAL and our water issues. And I appreciate your taking that into consideration as a board. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Alright.
sir.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too. That concludes the hearing for HK Ventures tonight, the DEIS. Greg, we hold this open for a period of time now?
So SECRA requires that the public comment period be left open for written comment for 10 days following the public hearing, so we will leave it open for 10 days. Comment will be left open until August 15th at close of business, 4:30 p.m.
All right, thank you.
I'm moving for it.
What's that?
We're going to close it?
We leave it open for comment.
Yeah, okay. Make a motion that we close the public hearing portion except for written comment, which will be accepted for 10 days. So moved.
Can we do that?
It's formality, yeah. It's consistent with what Greg explained.
I was closing here.
Yeah, it's fine. We get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion made and seconded to close the public portion, but leave it open for written comments for the 10-day DEC required period. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Good night. Okay, next public hearing is EP Equity 4 Holdings LLC on Edwards Avenue.
Popular road tonight.
Good evening, Kimberly Judd, 737 Roanoke Avenue, Riverhead, for the applicant.
Okay, I'm sorry, Kim.
That's okay. I have also with me Tom Wolpert from Young & Young, Eric Nicosia, the architect. I think he has a board right over here, I'm sorry, to show you the elevation. And I believe on Zoom, I don't know if you could check, is Doug Adams from Young & Young?
Yes.
If he could be unmuted, that would be great. So this is Lot 2 of the subdivision of 1998 Peconic LLC, which was filed in 2005. It's 3.9 acres zoned Industrial A. It's sandwiched between industrial areas. Right to the immediate north is the Electronic Payments, which was formerly the Village Crossroads Restaurant. Also to the north is gas station and convenience store. Directly to the east is Allied Building Supply and their warehouse. Directly to the west across the street is the Federal Express Building and warehouse. And directly south is Miller Environmental with industrial parking. We have, there are a couple comments we've had throughout the last couple of months with the board. The site plan shows that the 7 existing trees along Edwards Avenue are going to remain. And just wanted to point out some of the dimensional regulations, such as the contiguous landscape area. We have where 15% is required, we have 24.6%, which is almost 10% over. And as far as lot area, where the maximum is 40%, we're proposing 16.3%. And this is for 2 warehouse buildings. There were questions we've had in the past. There is a dedicated irrigation well that will be on the property. The last time we spoke with the board, a request was made about a berm, which we agreed that that was something that we could provide. And I believe Chairman Carey had asked about the distance the last time we spoke about the water line easement, and that the proposed building will be 10 feet from the water line easement area and then 15 feet from the actual water pipe. And I have, I see Doug over there. And the elevations are on the board, and if there's any questions for any of us here, we'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, so I think it would only be appropriate to ask 2 questions related to the last hearing that we went on for nearly 2 hours. But importantly, the timing of construction to coincide with this intersection that is the state's contemplating or is going to be starting to reconstruct.
Or Doug or Tom, is that something you want to speak about? The timing issue with the state?
If you know, I mean, maybe.
Can't hear you, Tom. Doug.
Tom Wolpert, Young and Young. We don't exactly know when construction would start. I would say soon after we receive all the permits that are needed to do this project, which include the Suffolk Health Department, which that application is pending. Water availability, we've requested water availability from Riverhead Water District. That's been pending as well. I would say similar to the applicant for the last hearing, it's getting too late to begin a project like that, like this year. So now we're into 2022. I think the timing would be similar to what the prior applicant had outlined, with the state starting their project in 2022 and completing it in 2023. I don't think we would be generating anywhere near the traffic as the prior applicant, but I understand it is a concern.
And as far as the water availability, how far along are you with the water district on that?
Just applied today.
You just applied today, okay. Greg, did we get comments? I don't remember if we got comments back from them about servicing these two buildings.
Well, I know that Doug Adams has had conversations with Frank Mancini about the existing RPZ and water line and whether or not we could tap off of it. I believe the answer to that was no. If Doug can correct me on that, or if I'm misstating it, but I don't think I am. As far as the, I'm sorry, go ahead, Doug.
That's correct. I talked to Frank extensively about this, and the easement is, I believe, specifically for
Allied.
Fire protection for that other building. Their water service isn't even attached to this thing that goes through the middle of the property. Theirs comes down Miller Drive or whatever you call it.
So I'm more interested in their capacity and their ability to service these two buildings and your gallons per day usage.
Frank didn't comment on the capacity issue. I mean, I believe this project's in the water district, and it was contemplated when the subdivision was done.
Okay.
So my guess is that we would be getting an availability letter, but that's, we haven't received that yet.
Okay.
And then as far as Mr. Chairman Carey, your question about the highway, state highway system question, we did get an email that was forwarded to Greg Bergman from New York State DOT, and stating that the scope of work involved at this location will not have a significant impact on the state highway system. We have no comments for this proposal at this time as described in your documents and plans, as long as all work is performed outside the state right-of-way, and the state right-of-way is not used for parking or staging of material equipment.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from the board?
No.
We've had you here a couple times already. Anyone from the public on this project? Do we have anybody online?
Nobody for this project.
Okay, one more time. Anyone from the public or online, comments or questions on EP Equity 4 Holdings on Edwards Avenue?
Raise your hand.
We have one?
No, tell them.
Oh, yeah, if you could raise your hand if you're on Zoom.
Negative.
Okay. We could close this.
Okay, make a motion to close the public hearing for EP Equity 4 Holdings LLC. So moved.
Thank you.
A motion made and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Public hearing is closed. Next public hearing on the agenda is Baiting Hollow Farm Vineyard Tasting Room Expansion.
Thank you. So we have a public hearing for a site plan application proposing to construct a approximately 6,000 square foot barn-style wine tasting pavilion with cellar for winemaking and processing to construct a 2,500 square foot farm equipment barn and to convert an existing wine processing building into a bathroom facility, as well as perform site lighting, landscaping, parking, drainage, and sanitary system improvements, as well as remove certain existing structures and legalize improvements which were installed without benefit of a permit at the site of an existing vineyard and tasting room located at 2114 Sound Avenue. At this point, I will turn it over to the applicant and let their design team present the project.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Volmuth from Volmuth and Brush Engineering and Surveying, Blue Point, New York. We are the engineers, surveyors, and planners for this Baiting Hollow Farms. We've worked on this project for quite some time. We were working for the previous owner, and now Mr. Sean Kelly has purchased this property, is making improvements, which I think the board will be happy with. Baiting Hollow Farms is proposing the demolition of the existing horse barn, stables, and sheds located in favor of a 6,048 square foot wine tasting pavilion and a 2,500 square foot farm equipment. The property has an area of 16.79 acres. It's zoned RA40 and RA80. Approximately 10 acres of the property is in vines right now. Portion of the property proposing construction is entirely located in RA80, and it is the area of the property that is currently, has been in use for years as their wine tasting area. There's a series of tents there. There's an existing barn there. A previous owner had a horse rescue operation going on there. The site is proposing the installation of new asphalt parking for the bulk of the main drive aisle to comply with Town of Riverhead parking requirements. Town of Riverhead requires 64 spaces. We're proposing 147 on asphalt because we understand the demand may be higher than the town requires. We're also providing overflow spaces in the rear, 175 additional spaces for a total of 175 spaces, 28 in the rear. That's on grass in the rear corner. Previous owner used to have buses go back there, but we propose that as overflow parking. Additional drainage pools are proposed in the courtyard area behind the existing tasting house, as well as the parking lot east of the proposed barn pavilion, to route additional impervious areas from building, roof, and asphalt areas. There's also a large gravel area parking that we're putting in, almost like a courtyard, to help in drainage. Lighting is provided with dark sky compliant housings and residential shielding on the east side. Landscape plans have been prepared and submitted for approval by RDA Landscape Architects, showing lawn, pavers, and proposed plantings between the existing tasting house and the proposed farm equipment barn. The existing tasting house will be reverted back to the use that was originally proposed under the 2007 site plan that was approved, which includes a second-floor residential apartment. The previous owner was using that for office. No further improvements are proposed for the existing building. So the existing building will continue to be viewed from the road as it does now. In our opinion, the plan mitigates a lot of the longstanding issues on this site. One is that overflow parking spilled out on Sound Avenue and caused congestion in front of this site, parking to the east and west on Sound Avenue. It solves the issue of porta-johns being used to serve people's needs on this property. That's being totally replaced with a compliant health department sanitary system, so porta-johns will no longer be utilized. We are currently in the process of obtaining approval for a sanitary system on the site. The increased distance from Sound Avenue for the tasting house should mitigate noise. It's moving approximately 230 feet north of Sound Avenue. The building is designed as, I think it's a pole barn style. I don't know if we can, post and beam style. So instead of having, which they have now, is tents with outdoor music right behind the existing tasting house. The actual pole barn will create a barrier to noise because the music and the tasting and the people outdoor would be to the north side of that rather than to the south side. That is the basic concept. The concept is to take our existing uses and try to improve them so that we can reduce the impacts on the town and to improve the experience for the customers coming in. I have the architect here, Mel Gonzalez. He can go over the design of the building. Sean Kelly, the owner, is here to answer any questions you may have on operations and what he intends to do with this site going forward.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Mel Gonzalez, MIG Architect, PLLC, 1050 Old Nichols Road, Islandia, New York, 11749. I also have been involved with this project for quite some time. Actually, its original inception when it was Beatty Hollow Farms for the previous owner back in 2005. Since then, Sean Kelly has purchased the property and has made it his mission to turn this into a less impactful business on that corridor of Sound Avenue. As stated by Mr. Volmuth, the structure, which is the tasting pavilion, which will be north of the existing tasting house, is over 200 feet north of the Sound Avenue. And one of the important factors here is mitigating sound in terms of music, the clientele being moved further north away from Sound Avenue, as well as the parking. The structure that's being proposed is a post and beam barn structure. I do have a rendering here. I don't know if you have that on your paperwork that was submitted to the town, but as you can see, as I hold it up here, it's a beautiful structure. It's very reminiscent of what's actually out in the East End. I think it actually ties in with the agricultural feel of the local area. In addition to that, there is a cellar, which will be a 5,000 plus square foot cellar, which is going to house the winemaking and wine processing portion of the business. And in this facility, as Mr. Volmuth had pointed out, porta potties will no longer be necessary. All right, the building or the structure that we're proposing will have bathrooms for men and women as we comply with the New York State building code and the plumbing code, as well as the existing wine processing structure that's going to be converted as well into a bathroom facility. And all of the sanitary is being designed by Volmuth and Brush. In the facility as well, what we're doing is we're providing a freight elevator so that we have proper access for loading and unloading any sort of equipment or any merchandise on the facility, which is going to be moved all the way to the north as opposed to the way it was currently closer to Sound Avenue. So that will help mitigate some of the traffic and some of the, let's say, trucks or anything that would provide deliveries to and from the business. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I have a question.
Sure.
How many people are you approved to have on the facility?
There is no approval as of yet. What we're proposing in terms of an occupancy, we have currently proposed, give me 1 second. $382 in that pavilion, okay, the way it's
So when
designed.
your lot's full, do you close it down and say no more people, or they just start parking everywhere?
Pardon? Say that again?
When you have your maximum people that you can handle, do you close the parking lot down, just let people out, or do you just park everywhere and walk in, or?
No, I would defer that to Mr. Kelly, the owner of the business. as to how he conducts, addressing that issue.
So what was the total parking spaces we had? 175. So at least two people per car, we should be able to meet our occupancy. If it went over that, we do have along the Sound Avenue on the east side of our property, there is overflow parking out in front of our vines. We have yet to use it. I've only owned the place since last July, so
So there's
we
no,
never had
you're
that
not encouraging
overflow use.
people to park on the side of the road, in other words?
We haven't experienced that yet,
Okay.
no.
That was my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
What's the, how many acres are you growing?
How many what?
How many acres are you growing actually?
Around 10 acres of vines.
Yeah. How
So,
many,
go ahead, Dick, I'm sorry.
how many acres of is the vineyard?
Oh, like
17 acres. Masks are difficult. The property is approximately 17 acres total. 10 acres of it is in vineyard production, vine production right now.
So you'll have, to make us pliable, you'll have to get grapes or wine from other places.
No, we produce all of our own wine using all of our own grapes. Right now, we harvest our grapes and we send them out to Premium Wine Group to manufacture the wine.
Is it one variety in the 10 acres?
No, we have Riesling, Merlot, Cab Franc, and Cab Sauv.
Did you bring samples?
Yeah, I was going to ask.
I knew I forgot something.
Thank you.
So, what are the hours of operation?
Around 11:30 a.m. to 6:30, around 7 p.m.
So by 7, you're shutting down?
Usually finish by around 7:30, cleaning up and everything.
Okay, and, I mean, I see often and witness a lot of buses coming in and out. Is there area for bus parking and bus turnaround on your property?
Well, two things. That primarily we forbid buses from coming in there unless they have reservations. And we have the buses coming in at certain times where if they needed, they can turn around in the existing parking area that we have. And I know we've made provisions for the parking in the northeast corner for buses to turn around. And,
So, here's the concern. You get a bunch of buses that you didn't anticipate. They pull in. You're not going to let them in. They can't back out onto Sound Avenue.
we have to turn around.
The overflow parking area, which is in the northeast behind the vines, which is grass right now if you've been on site, is where the buses have been turning around and coming up under the previous owner. It actually shows in the drawings, but I forget what sheet it is though. 100? Actually, sheet 100 shows you the bus turnaround, where it's located.
On property.
On property.
So they wouldn't be directed to back out on Sound
That would be
Avenue.
a bad idea, to back
Well,
out on Sound. Okay?
When you have, a 18-year-old directing traffic on Sound Avenue, and you got 200 cars in there, and the boss tells him, don't let any more in, what do you think he's gonna tell him to do? So, that's just a concern. The other question I have is there were several references made to live music and amplified music. So my question is what approvals do you have to have any type of music without a special permit?
That issue is already litigated against the prior owners, and there was a court decision that said incidental music on the property is within the current zoning and the current licensing that we have. I can provide you a copy of the court's decision on that.
Greg,
And
could you come up? I'm not saying I disagree with that, but we have been advised on other similar projects that amplified music and live music was only allowed by special permit from the town board, and it seems that this is on a regular occasion, and Is it allowable under the code right now for the zoning?
Well, so it's not mentioned in the zoning code. I won't speak to litigation, what was just adjudicated through the courts. Really, it's in the town's noise ordinance. There's a section 251-5C, which states that places of public entertainment, it lists restaurants, bars, taverns, discotheques, etc., shall not produce sound in excess of 95 decibels sustained for more than 30 seconds. So there's nothing in the, I believe it's RB 80 zoning code that specifically allows or prohibits it. There's nothing in the zoning code.
Right, but I don't want you to take my questions the wrong way, because I'm not saying that I'm against it, but it's been a big issue for us in the past, and I just think that we need to properly capture this. But the uses that you mentioned is not this use. You said discotheque and restaurants, that's not this use.
Correct. I mean, it just places of entertainment. I would classify this. I mean, it is the processing of wine and the sales and the tasting of wine is accessory to the agricultural
So
production.
if there's an outside band scheduled for next Saturday, does that require a special permit from the town?
Based on my reading of the code, I do not believe it does.
I believe there's a restriction on all of Sound Avenue.
That's what, I mean, this
From
is,
25A to 48.
I think we're gonna ask for clarification on that, because, we've had other properties, that this was a major issue, and we've gotten conflicting information, so we're gonna have to clarify that.
Okay. But like I said, I'll provide you with a copy of the court's decision. The old owner was sued by the town of Riverhead for the exact thing that you're talking about.
You said incidental music. Incidental music is maybe music playing in the background with, while you're tasting wine or something, and it's not that loud. But when you have a band outside that's projecting across farm fields, I don't think that falls into that category.
It's incidental unless it exceeds the decibel levels that Mr. Bergman just discussed.
A live band is incidental?
Sure. Now, if you go with the COVID restrictions that Cuomo put in place, he said that we could not advertise live music, but we were allowed to provide incidental music. In other words, incidental to the reason a person comes to the property. They're not coming to my property to listen to music. They're coming to drink wine. So we don't sell tickets, and we don't bring people to the vineyard, so to speak, to listen to music. So therefore, it's incidental until it reaches a point where it exceeds the decibel levels. And like I said, the Supreme Court judge that decided the motion that dismissed the town of Riverhead's case against us in the past clarified what music is allowed and what music is not allowed.
And that
what we
decision clearly said live bands?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're just gonna ask for clarification from our counsel on that at some point.
Well, let me tell you how I addressed that, though. The bands in the past, because I had been to this vineyard before I owned it, and it was quite a spectacle. And they'd have full bands there that would pull up with their big amplifiers and blast them out towards Sound Avenue. The first thing I did is I installed a sound system that has all the speakers connected to my buildings facing in, and I require the bands to plug into my system. They can't play through their amplifiers. I have total control of the volume. I have my own decibel meter. I walk out to the roadway, and my sons are here right now because they run it with me, and we go out there when the bands are setting up, and we listen, we check the decibel level, we make sure it's at the appropriate level, and in fact, we can't even hear it from Sound Avenue, because we point all the speakers into the area between the house and the barn. And with the new setup that we're going to have, the area that we're currently playing live music is no longer going to be playing live music. We're going to be doing it on the north side of the new structure. We're going to be almost 300 feet from Sound Avenue, where somebody, if they are going to play outside, will play outside. But with the new tasting house, we'll be able to play inside for once.
Okay.
It's much quieter there.
Excuse me?
It's much quieter now.
Oh.
I live right there.
Okay.
I would say this also, to point out for the record, that you have a very, very large sign that says no buses. So I think we should just put that into the record. You can't miss that sign. Believe me.
And we'll let a Sprinter van or something like that come in with a reservation. And
Okay.
if they should come in without it, like I said, they have to leave.
All right, any other questions from the board? No. Anyone from the public have any questions or comments? Anyone on Zoom? Yes, Foley. Sure we have one? Yeah, Mike. Okay, Mr. Foley, we're going to bring you in.
Hopefully keep them on track.
Thanks, Stan. I think I got online quicker than the last time. Thank you very much. Mike Foley, Reeves Park. And I want to talk about the relationship of the historic Sound Avenue corridor to this application. But first, I have a few questions for the owner. Sean, are you intending or planning to have any special events, including weddings, proms, family reunions that are not open to the public?
I don't have any currently planned, but I think that may be a possibility in the future.
Okay, so thanks for your honesty and your candor, Sean, because I think that in and of itself brings up the problem. Jamesport is swamped with accessory to accessory uses that are making the quality of life for the residents of their town a living hell. It came up in a meeting 2 days ago at Town Hall. Stan and Ed, I remember both of you at the Cider House hearing, where we became accessories to accessories to accessories, and ultimately ended up with music that would be allowed inside without speakers outdoors. That was the ultimate concession. I'm happy to say that the owner has actually lived up to that concession. So he's been a good neighbor. But Sean, as long as you're still here, I know that there are a lot of white tents in your area that were serving food. Did you have permits for those?
We had gotten 10 permits, yes.
You had temporary permits, which covered all of the uses for all of the tents, serving all of the food at your events. Is that your statement?
Yes.
Okay. So if we found that that was not accurate, would you say that you'd have to revise your application?
I don't understand. What do you mean?
What I mean is, I don't think that's true. And if that's not true, and you're comfortable saying something that's not true, why would I believe anything as a resident on the historic Sound Avenue corridor on what you're trying to put over on the planning board and the residents of Riverhead right now? Let me go on.
Well, we're not going to be using tents in the future once we have the new tasting house built.
Oh, I understand that. But what you are going to use to replace the things that didn't belong there in the first place, forgive me if I'm a little skeptical about your long-term plans. So let me go on a little bit more. As far as I'm concerned, Sean, when you put in a 6,000-foot building to talk about wine tasting, you want to have a little piano music like they have on Thursday nights on the Cider House, or any other music that you want to have inside that building, that's within the scope of the building that you're putting in and does not intrude on any of your neighbors. You spoke about the neighbors on Sound Avenue. Do you have neighbors to the north of you between your property and the Long Island Sound, Sean?
No, I don't know. I can't see any of them.
Okay, but well, I don't know either, Sean. But you know something? I think that's something you should know. When you start talking about moving sound away from Sound Avenue and into an area towards the Sound, and you have no idea how many houses might be there that are now you are imposing on their quiet enjoyment of their life. So you've already said that you're going to do special events. You have no plans, but it might be you're going to have special events if you can get away with it. You're not going to have weddings, but you might be. You're going to have weddings if you can get away with it. So it would be my position, and something that I'm going to push real hard, because Sound Avenue, the historic Sound Avenue corridor, is an area that is sacred to our town. It is sacred to the people that pass through it, and I have absolutely no problem with vineyards and wine areas for tasting. If it's done tastefully, that's fine. But what I'm hearing right now, Sean, is you're setting us up for a wedding venue, and that is unacceptable on the historic Sound Avenue corridor. And out the planning board just heard that. Well, I'm not planning any, but it might be. That means he's planning it, Stan. Ed, that means he's planning it. That doesn't mean it might be. He's going to do it if we give him a foot in the door. So I want all of you to remember that. And I also want you, Sean, to think about one other thing. As far as I'm concerned, without an irrevocable covenant stating that in perpetuity there will be no special events on that property, I am going to do everything I can to shut this down. Let me go on with a couple other quick things before I give it up. You said outdoor music is acceptable. I already say, as far as the cider house is concerned, they made the concession. They won't even put speakers out in their area, and they've lived up to that. They've lived up to that concession. Are you willing, under the threat of maybe not getting anything approved, if the planning board says no music outside of that 6,000-foot building that you're putting up is acceptable, are you willing to sign that covenant, Sean?
Well, Mr. Foley, I'm going to ask that a comment like that you direct towards the planning board, and then as we go through the process, it would be up to this board to determine that, if that's going to be a condition of approval.
My apologies, Stan. I figured because the owner was here and he wanted to answer the public
Well,
questions.
your point is heard and well taken, and, you know, we're taking notes, we'll consider it, and when we have it back at a work session, we'll propose it. And if a majority of the board feels that that's the way they want to go, that's what we'll require.
And I apologize, Stan, if I directed my questions
No,
to
that's
the
fine.
owner who was there and sounded like he was ready to answer questions. But Stan, I'll ask one more question, maybe two. The owner stated in his statement that the building is well within the realm of the East End. Is the height of this building, Stan, around 50 feet?
Well, that one we could ask. The barn, right, the new barn, what's the height of it?
The height of the new barn is under 35 feet.
Under 35 feet.
The code states that 35 feet is the height limit, and we're under the 35-foot height limit.
Under 35 feet.
Well, Stan, I have to tell you, by accident, I saw this public hearing. The thing that really came across my radar was the first public hearing. But I spent a few minutes, and granted, I am certainly a layperson when it comes to drawings and blueprints. But I thought the aggregate number of footage that was turfed out in 4 feet, 6 feet, 15 feet, 11 feet heights on the side of the building went to approximately 49 feet. So I'll ask you, and Stan, I know you'll take the time, and as I trust the rest of the planning board will, to take a look at the drawing. Sean just said it was 35 feet. He's probably right, because why would he be so wrong on that than to say it to you publicly? So I'll trust that my calculations were wrong and his are accurate. If, however, mine are closer to accurate than his, I would ask you what structure on the east end on the historic Sound Avenue corridor goes anywhere near 35 feet, not even 50 feet. Near 35 feet. There are a few.
I think we can clear that up.
This is very simple, okay? I understand your concern, but I'll put your concern to rest. We would not be approved if the building was over 35 feet. We would require a variance, and we are not applying for a variance. We are going to comply with the 35-foot height limit, and it will be under 35 feet.
So, Mr. Gonzalez, you are a licensed architect?
That is correct.
And your testimony here today is stating that it's under 35 feet and it's within the code?
That is correct. And we had an ARB meeting on 2 separate occasions, one in May and just recently in July, where the height limit was discussed, and it was agreed that we were under the 35-foot height limit.
So I think on that one, Mr. Foley, we'll take the applicant's word and plan submission for what it is.
Did you
As do
stamp
I,
your
Stan.
plans,
Thank
Mr.
you very
Gonzalez?
much for making
Pardon?
that,
Did you stamp your
that
plans?
question and answer very,
I
very
have 'em here.
clear and
Stamped?
very simply verifiable.
Signed and sealed.
I'll just end with this, Stan, and I'm going to address you too, Ed, too, because, Ed, you've been tagged as a guy that kind of supports any developer that comes before you. Now, I'm not sure that that's an accurate depiction, and I have never said that about you. But certainly, I do know that for the cider house, there were issues that came up that I felt you were unfairly weighed towards the developer. I'm going to ask, and certainly there was one other thing, and that had to do with Solar 2, where there was a view problem that came to mind, and you made what I felt was a very flippant remark, and I commented on it, that you're not guaranteed a vista. I would ask you to be a little bit more understanding of the residents that have been here, the residents that know that we're here because we love it here. And the areas north of Sound Avenue, in the Bating Hollow area and going all the way out, is really one of the last vistas, to use a word, that is rural. And we're clinging on with both hands till death do us part. So we just heard, in my mind, without any question, this developer plans to put wedding receptions and private parties on the 6,000 square foot building that he is replacing the tents that I find questionable were permitted on all the times that they were put up there.
Mike, what's your objection to
a non-revocable covenant that prohibits any special events on there is a bare minimum for this planning board to request of this owner. And if this present owner is of good intention, he'll be a good neighbor like I am saying now. A guy that opposed the cider house, like the owner of the cider house has been. He has lived up to his word. He has confined the music inside those four walls and hasn't even put a speaker outside, which he removed on our request as a part of these public hearings. So, Sean, I'm going to ask you this, for the good of the town, for the good of the sound, the preservation of the historic Sound Avenue corridor, that you consider limiting under a permanent covenant the inability for you to do anything other than what you came before this planning board to do, which is to have people taste your wines and have some souvenirs and have a good time and some light music inside those four walls, so people that don't want to hear it don't have to hear it. I thank you very much for your time.
And Mike, can I ask you a question?
Certainly.
I'm just curious to what your objections are to parties, weddings, anniversaries. Why is that different than the everyday function? I don't understand your objection.
I'll be happy to explain that, Ed. If you watch the town board meeting on Tuesday, there was a facility that had originally on its application no intention of having these type of special events, are now running them every week, and they're driving the neighbors nuts. If he wants to open a catering facility, that changes the demographic of this zoning, does it not? This is a rural corridor. There should not be any halls there that do that kind of activity, Ed. And if you go in under one thing, come on in, taste our grapes, taste our wine, buy our T-shirts, have a little music, and have a good time, I'm fine with that. But once you expand it beyond that, he's not a vineyard anymore, he's a catering hall. Let's call it what it is. And a catering hall does not belong on the historic Sound Avenue corridor. Wouldn't you agree with that, Ed?
Not a catering hall. All right, I get your point, Mike. Thank you.
So,
thank you, Ed.
Mr. Foley, so that question will be contemplated by the board as this project moves through the process. And again, if a majority of the board wants to put those restrictions on it, it'll be a condition of approval. If not, it'll go without it. And again, I can't answer for everybody at this point in time because we haven't talked about it as a board. But your comments are well taken and part of the record.
And I appreciate the opportunity to do that, Stan, and I thank the entire planning board for what they do. I know it's for the most part a thankless job. I appreciate anybody that volunteers their time to get in the arena. But here we are in the master plan development right now. We're about to finalize, or about to initiate a master plan that's supposed to set our course for the next 20 years. Please, let's protect the historic Sound Avenue corridor and put catering halls and everything else where they belong. And that's not on Sound Avenue. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else with this project? Public hearing. No one else? Public? Last call?
Right now.
Who do you have?
Toby Turgeon. Last moment.
Okay. We have another person who wishes to speak, Ms. Turchin.
Hello, this is Takui Turchin, Calverton. I'd like to pose a question to the owner, applicant, on the traffic flow on the property. Historically, the property's experienced quite a lot of Sound Avenue log jams, if you will. And I'm looking at Google Maps while we're doing this public hearing. I'm looking at the perimeter of the property on the westerly edge and wondering if there's a possibility to work out with your neighbors, the Owen Brothers Landscaping, one or two easements over their land to access an egress from your property to Edwards Avenue north of Sound Avenue. And what that would accomplish would be easing the flow back out onto Sound Avenue during high traffic times, and then being able to make use of that traffic light at the corner. I think that's about it. I do want to commend local businesses and our famous wine country entrepreneurs, and now an established industry on our East End. And I'd like to see them thrive. I'd like to see. This is the first one on the wine tour for wine country. It's gained rather a famous moniker for a good product, and I'd like to see it excel and take away the distractions and the detractions that have occurred in the history of the property. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing in Bating Hollow Farm Vineyard tasting room.
A motion made and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Public hearing is closed. Thank you. Look forward to having you back. All right. That's it, yeah, for the public hearings.
And Zoom is going to have.
Okay. Next discussion item. Hopefully everyone's still here. Overlook Homes.
Mr. Cuddy? Overlook?
We have to wait for Greg, too.
Yeah.
Where'd he go?
I don't know if you want Craig to come up or... You want to come up first? This has been a four-lot subdivision that's been before the board for a number of years. We've worked on getting the road straightened out. Mr. Binkus is here, who is the owner of the site. We're at a point now where we've gotten DEC approval. I think Mr. Bergman will indicate to you that there really is not anything else that we need to do except at this point gain approval for the subdivision. As I say, it's four lots. The lots are in Overlook Drive. Mr. Binkus has worked out an agreement with the other homeowners so they can get the road done, which has been a big bone of contention. I think that's now resolved, and he's ready to go ahead, and we'd like to go ahead and just get approval from the board. And I think that's what it's on for tonight.
Okay, so this has been a long time. So I know the pavement was an issue. We've had that resolved.
Yes.
I think the drainage was an issue, and we recently resolved that.
That's resolved now, too.
And then the requested turnaround, I think by the proposed dock is also included?
Yeah, yes. We should, I think everything that the board has looked at is now in a satisfactory form.
Those are the three that stick out in my mind from going back to, when is that, 18?
Yeah, we recently just got the drainage taken care of.
Okay.
Yes, all of those things are taken care of.
Greg, is there anything else that we should be aware of before we consider a vote?
No, sir. At this point, like Mr. Cuddy said, they've got their DEC permits. They've thoroughly addressed all of town's consulting engineer's comments. The bottom line is the condition of the roadway will be improved exponentially for all the residents, emergency access. They are providing the turnaround. So at this point, we do have an approval resolution on for this to finally get this over the line.
Okay, any questions, board? Nope. All right, next discussion item, North Fork Developers LLC.
All right, so this is just a quick follow-up. We did a secret coordination on the Norfolk Developers LLC major subdivision, which is a proposed major subdivision of an existing 12.8 acre parcel. They're going to create 10 single-family residential building lots. The planning board did approve a yield map, which was 11 lots. They are now proposing 10 to comply with the Long Island Workforce Housing Act. Being that they're voluntarily reducing their density, they do not need to provide any additional workforce housing units. Plans have been referred out during the secret coordination process. We did receive comments back from the Suffolk County Planning Commission. They considered it a matter for local determination. So we have a resolution on to assume lead agency, issue a negative declaration, and we have also a resolution on to schedule a public hearing.
Okay, is the applicant here?
Yes.
Okay, so I know we did the layout map, and we're getting to this point, but have we been clear enough about the water situation with this application, and does the applicant fully understand that it's subject to the extension of the Riverhead Water District and their deficit? Because we've been asked to clearly put that on the record each and every time.
So we did, I will just speak from the town's aspect, we did refer to the water district. We did get comments from H2M, the town's consulting engineer. There will be a lateral water main extension, which will need to be approved by the town board. Will need to be implemented by the Riverhead Water District. There were a number of comments from them, but I believe you're posing a question to the applicant if he's aware, so I'll just turn that to him.
When we had the superintendent here and the town attorney, these were going to come with a map and plan, and the approval was going to be subject to the conditions of the extension of the water district and their ability or capacity to service them. I just want to go on record, and the applicant, if you could just come up and acknowledge that you at least understand that for us, please.
I'm also here with the applicant, but he certainly does.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm aware. I listened remotely to, I think it was 2 weeks ago, when,
Right.
You held that hearing, so I was present for that.
Sir, could you just state your name, please?
Oh, yeah, Gary Sherman,
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Norfolk Developers.
Thank you. Any other questions on that, North Fork Developers?
No.
Okay, the last one is Chapter 219 for Druzd residents. Greg, are you the whole planning department nowadays?
Thank you. All right, so we've received a Chapter 219 application seeking approval to reconstruct a portion of existing bulkhead return at the location of existing single-family residence and to replace 11 linear feet of existing bulkhead with 20 feet of Navy-style bulkhead, reinforce that with half-ton armor stone, and install terracing along the eastern portion of a bluff face to regrade, revegetate the disturbed area behind that bulkhead with Cape American beach grass. The project is an unlisted action pursuant to SECRA, coordinator review being optional and not recommended. The applicant has obtained a valid New York State DEC permit for the proposed action, and the town's consulting engineer has recommended engineering approval for the proposed project. At this time, staff recommends the planning board assume lead agency, issue a negative declaration, as the proposed action will serve to limit erosion at the bluff face, and there are no foreseeable negative impacts. Property is located at 30 Park Place, Bating Hollow, within the RA 40 zoning district. It's a 0.45 acre parcel located on the Long Island Sound. In the staff report, I did include just existing pictures of the bulkhead, the area where it is going to be replaced. As you can see, it's in very poor condition. As I stated, the DEC permit is in place. They are proposing terracing, though. It is above the 10-foot elevation and is outside the DEC's jurisdictional area. June 29th, 2021 memo, the town's consulting engineer recommended engineering approval, and they do identify plans for the staging area for materials that would be fully contained on the subject property and would not be located in any way that would prohibit the public's access to any public beaches, and as is standard.
My question.
And the applicant's contractor will need to enter into hold harmless agreement approved by the town attorney's office for any vehicular beach access. I did receive an email from the applicant late this afternoon. She was not feeling well, so unfortunately she is not here. But like I said, DEC permits are in place, engineering approval is recommended. The bluff face is in really poor condition, so this is very needed.
And the applicant's in agreement with your comments, and there's no issue?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Greg.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we're up to resolutions, but before we do, any public comments for resolutions?
What about number 3, the
Excuse me?
Drazen residence? Do we do that?
Yes, we just, yep, that one's complete.
Supposed to be sleeping here.
Any comments from the public on resolutions? No? Okay, so we can go on to the resolutions.
I'll move resolution 80, Overlooks Home subdivision, so moved.
Second the motion?
Okay, motion made and seconded to approve resolution 80 for Overlook Homes. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Resolution is approved.
I'll move resolution number 81 for the Crown Castle at Fresh Pond Avenue. So moved?
Second.
Okay, so just real briefly, this is the one that we voted on at the last meeting. There were some outstanding questions that a couple of us had. Those questions have since been answered, and that's why this is up for another vote tonight. So we have a motion made and seconded to approve Resolution 81, granting preliminary site plan approval for Crown Castle at Fresh Pond Avenue. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I'm going to be opposed. I'm not opposed to cell towers in any way, shape, or form, but I am opposed to external antennas. I don't believe we need them. I believe they're unsightly. With that said, I'll have to vote no.
Okay, so I'm just going to, for clarity, call the roll here. George, your vote?
Yay.
Yes. Dick, your vote?
Yes.
Okay, Ed?
No.
And my vote is yes, so it passes 3-1. Number 3 on the agenda. This one was tabled at the last meeting because the other one wasn't approved.
So do we need to do anything with it?
Yes. We should untable it and then vote on it.
Motion to take resolution number 77 off the table, so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we're off the table, 77.
Motion to move 77, Crown Castle at Fresh Pond Avenue, so moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded to approve Resolution 77 for Crown Castle at Fresh Pond. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, George?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Ed?
No.
Stan is yes, so that is approved 3-1.
I'll move resolution number 82, the Glass Residence, Chapter 219, permit extension, so moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded to approve Resolution 82, Chapter 219 for Glass Residents. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Resolution is approved.
I'll move resolution 83, Riverhead Townhomes, grant preliminary site plan approval, so moved.
Second the motion.
Okay, just for the record, before I call a vote on this one, Joe Bear, who couldn't be here tonight, just wanted me to state for him on the record that he is opposed to this because he feels that the square footage of the apartments is too small. So just so that's on the record. But we do have a motion and a second to approve this preliminary site plan approval, Resolution 83 for Riverhead Townhomes. All in favor?
Chairman, I just want to share a thought discussion real quick.
Sure.
I'm kind of opposed to this too. I think it's too much on a little lot. But in discussing it with somebody, they made a good point. Look what's there now.
Yes.
This will be better. So I just want to state that. That's the reason why I'm going to vote yes.
All right, so again, 83, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Resolution is approved.
I'll move resolution number 84 for the Droz Chapter 219 application. So moved.
Second. Motion made and second to approve Resolution 84, Chapter 219 for the Druz residents. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution is approved.
I'll move Resolution 85 for North Fork Developers LLC to assume lead agency status and issue a negative deck. So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made and second to approve Resolution 85 for North Fork Developers for negative declaration. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is approved. Okay.
I'll move 86 for North Fork Developers LLC to schedule a public hearing on the subdivision. So moved.
Second the motion?
Motion made and seconded to approve Resolution 86 to schedule a public hearing for North Fork Developers. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution is approved. Resolution 87 is for Sunken Ponds, and this establishes the parks and recreation fees. We were advised on this by Dick Ehlers at a previous meeting. I don't know if there's any questions or discussion. If not, we could vote on it.
I'll move 87, Sunken Pond Estates, establish park and rec fees.
Okay, motion made and seconded to approve Resolution 87, Sunken Pond Estates. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Resolution is approved. Okay, we're up to public comments on any matter. Anyone else have anything they want to address the board? Okay. Minutes of July 15th for approval?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Just very quickly on other business, I know Jefferson isn't here tonight, but at the last meeting I asked for some clarification on a couple issues. One being the comments on the solar project in Calverton, and it seems as though when it went from the Article 10 siting board to the ORIS, the identical comments were submitted, which were dated October 18th, and I believe Jefferson told me that on the record, or told us that on the record, which were submitted on March 3rd, 2021. So my question is we have comments here from February 3rd, 2020, which came from the planning board with my electronic signature on it, and I was just wondering how could these comments have been included if the identical comments from 2018 were used. So it just doesn't make sense to me that the answer I received, and I still haven't received clarification, so I'm going to be asking Jefferson for that. And also at the last meeting, I had asked about the Riverhead Ford property. I did get a response from Jefferson, but I did not agree or accept his response because his response was basically what was already observed going on the property, and my specific question was, is it allowable use that this board approved? And I didn't get that answer. I think it's obvious what's going on there and why it's going on, but that wasn't my question. The question was,
Allowed use.
was it an allowed use? And, I'm not trying to pick on the business or hurt the business at all, if there's a need for it, but, if it's temporary, I understand, but also at the same time, what liability does the town have knowing that this use is going on the property? And, if something happens, whether it's fire marshal related or something stored there that nobody's aware of, what's the town's liability? So that's really why I asked, and I think if it's temporary, very simple measures could be taken, like maybe naming the town as additional insured for the activity for a short period of time, letting the fire marshal do a walkthrough. You know, I think it's a public benefit use, so I'm not trying to speak against that, but there's a liability factor here if, in fact, it's not an allowable use that we approved. And it was brought to our attention, or at least my attention, and that's really what I'm asking for, Jefferson. So I know he's not here, but I'm hoping that, Carissa, you could pass this along to him for us.
Yeah.
All right.
And I agree. I'm sure that Riverhead Ford has required them to at least put them as an additional insured, and I think the town should be on there as well, just in case.
And I think, you know, at the very least, the fire marshal, I'm sure he's not using the property for free, and, you know, for the fire marshal to do a walkthrough and maybe put up some placards where needed, or at least have a conversation with the fire department, would probably put this to bed for the few months that they're going to be there. Any other business?
Can we go home now?
All right, next meeting is Thursday, August 19th, 2021 at 3 p.m. Motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Okay, have a good night.
You too, have a good weekend, everybody.